Hello all, thank you for coming to the Latino and U.S. Politics event today. We have our four panelists. Our fifth one may or may not show up, we're not sure, but for now we do have four. And we'll just have everyone introduce themselves and then we'll get started.
Hello, everybody. My name is Frida Alvarez. I am a St. Ben senior. I'm a Peace Studies major and poli-sci minor.
Hello, I'm Yarisa Rodriguez. I'm an English major, Asian Studies minor, and I'm a senior.
How's it going, guys? Jesus or Jesus Belmonte, political science major, senior.
Gerald Torres, I'm a sophomore, political science major and philosophy minor.
So this will be, of course, panel form. So if you guys, anyone in the crowd just has a question, just raise your hand and we'll bring the mic over to you. So we'll just start out with, so this will be about the U.S. elections and coming from the Latino perspective, just because we feel like it's been a big role in the 2016 election this year. So we'll start out with the opening question. With all the policies that Trump and Clinton that they have been mentioning, what policies do you think are maybe going to go through? Which ones are logical and which ones just don't make sense and most likely won't go through? Anyone can go ahead.
Trump's policies on his tax policies probably won't go through because it puts a huge deficit in our national debt, and it's just kind of irrational the way he's trying to go through with this plan. And like, I just got the number right here. It would put the debt into 1.5 trillion, and his tax plan is so not clear that it can go up to $750 billion or go down in cost. So it's kind of very scary to say that this person who's running for president doesn't have a clear idea of his tax plan for this country.
I think one of the policies is always talked about like deporting all the undocumented immigrants, and that's not very likely to occur. It would be a lot of money, and also a lot of people that come as undocumented immigrants, they tend to have children here, and so that would also create a lot of separation from families and create potentially a lot of orphans, or force a lot of American citizens, which would be the children of the undocumented immigrants, would force them to then have to migrate to Mexico, or like I said, become orphans. So that doesn't seem very likely to occur, as well as it just being very expensive.
Going off that, I think that Trump has kind of let off the gas behind that as he saw that he loses Hispanic votes by saying stuff like that. So, even though Trump flip-flops all the time nowadays, so this isn't really something new. But yeah, going off of that, his immigration policy is a bit stiff and costly. That's what I have to say about that.
Does anyone have any questions at all that they want to hear? Or all right, we had another question. In the 2016 election, it's been shown that like being a Democrat and a conservative or Republican is different. So what do you think it means to be a Republican in this election with Trump and all the policy that's been going on?
Well, being a Republican's kind of tough just because Trump's views they don't really coincide with the views of the Republican Party. So it kind of like puts real Republicans or Tea Party Republicans, at a crossroads, either to support their party, to, gain power in the presidential office, or support this guy that kind of says that he's a Republican when his views don't really align.
Going off of that, we saw in the past election that Republicans their plan for this election was to broaden out their voters, try to get people, women, black voters, Hispanic voters. And then you have a person who's running for presidency who is literally doing the complete opposite of what you're trying to do. So it's kind of hard for Republicans to go behind this one person because his whole perspective on his voters is just to get white males to vote for him, and that's kind of cutting it pretty badly for future elections.
Going on with that, since we already figured out that Trump's looking for the white male vote, and he's attacked women, Hispanics, Muslims, veterans, all these other different groups of people, how do you think that has influenced maybe like solidarity amongst them, or dividing different minorities? What I'm trying to say is like all this hate speech that's coming from him, do you think that's actually benefiting the rest of the community to come together, or?
Absolutely. I think that Trump has done a really good job of bringing out the minority voters, just because in the past, I guess Hispanics, for example, we don't really tend to engage as much as the white population. So, but now that we have something to rally, against, something that we don't like, it makes us feel really strongly to go and show our voice. So I think that it's really huge that he's bringing up an issue that indirectly that has been, affecting, turnout for a while.
Going off of that, I want to say, Hispanics are the lowest group in voting, and now there's 4 million more voters of Hispanic voters than there were last election. So I think it's important not to just also vote from hatred, but actually know the issues, know the policies, know why you're voting for a person. Like, I get it that you have some type of hatred, but it's important to know who you're voting for as well.
Along that vein, then, if you're not going to vote for Trump based on his positions on immigration and others, what's your basis for choosing to vote for Clinton or for Jill Stein of the Green Party or for Gary Johnson and Weld from the Libertarians? Talk a little bit about what those candidates are saying to you as voters, and pick something that, from any one of them, that you can stand behind as opposed to being opposed.
Yeah, that's actually really, huge concern. Sure, can hate Trump, but now you're put in a tough spot where you just want to vote against the opposition, just to get at him. My mom thinks that I could help her out, choosing the right candidate. So, but I keep telling her, don't vote Hillary just because, you want to get at Trump. Vote for somebody that actually, aligns with your views, and it's tough just because, the race is only between two parties, two candidates, but I think it's more important to get your voice to be heard, particularly Gary Johnson, if that's what you believe, or Jill Stein. That's just an important thing to do instead of just picking the opposition just because you don't want this guy to be elected.
It's difficult to generalize all Latinos in America, or to say that before represent all those views, but do you think there's a situation where there could be Latino voters who are able to look past things that Trump says and or feel strongly about this platform enough so that they are asking to overlook that and vote for him or vote Republican?
Yeah, actually there's 50% of all Latinos are actually planning on voting for Trump. So that shows you that people can actually look past people's ignorance, let's say that, and actually vote for what they believe in.
Yeah, and going off of that, like, yeah, I think that they could definitely look past it. You know, if they could look past the sound bites that media does of Trump just to show all the bad things that he says. You know, if you actually go and look at the issues, you know, you could find things that you actually like about him and feel strongly to support him. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would say that sometimes if you take, well, not sometimes, I think one of my political science classes when I was very briefly a political science major, we talked about how like the Black and Latino and other people of color, if they were to not be in such tough positions like for Mexican Americans or undocumented immigrants, you know, a lot of times there's a lot of policies against them from the conservative party, but from like a moral standpoint, as far as issues of like a woman's position maybe, you know, in the home, you know, like Latino culture, there's a lot of machista, like women don't want to home, men work, divide. I think there's a lot of respect for those views, and then, you know, things like abortion, Latinos are heavily Catholic, and very close to their religion, so I think that in that aspect, yes, they could look past that, but it's really hard when like your whole life is, in America is riding on this very important decision of whether we should uproot a whole bunch of families and deport them back to, you know, Mexico or wherever else they're from, you know, Colombia. And so I think that, like I said, it's very hard to just look past that. So you could look past that, but then it would affect your whole life.
If you, like, thinking about race in the election and, like, if would you say that Donald Trump is racist and therefore following the line of can you ignore those things, is it wrong to ignore if he is considered racist? Is it wrong to ignore that fact instead of voting for all these other policies? Or do those other policies matter more than that race? Because as like a white male, obviously I don't have that experience with like my race, you know, create a problem for me in terms of what I'm voting. But does that, like, as a Hispanic voter, does that change your view of him drastically as like me?
I think for a Latina voter, so being both of color and a woman, I think it's really hard because if you're looking past his racism, then maybe you can't see past his sexism or vice versa. But with a male, maybe you could see past, you know, my uncle was voting for Donald Trump, and he's a dark-skinned Mexican, but he's been raised in the United States, and I think a lot of the reason he's voting for Trump is because he's come to really dislike and he has come to disassociate himself with his Mexican roots. So I think that's one of the reasons. So maybe if you dislike other Mexicans or you disagree with the methods they use to come here, so maybe if you have been in the United States for generations, so if you're from California, you've been there, so you never even actually immigrated in the United States, you know, border crossed you was like a lot of saying that a lot of Mexicans use, because if you've been there the whole time, then maybe you wouldn't have that issue with the immigration policies. Because a lot of the times, I was actually just reading a comment that said Donald Trump doesn't oppose immigration, he opposes the fact that it's a lot of times it's illegal immigration. But I still think that as a Mexican American woman, that it'd be really hard for me to see past that because there's, you know, the two sides to it for me. But maybe from the perspective of a male, a Latino male, it would be different.
I think it has to kind of go down to your beliefs, and if you're willing to look past that, that's basically on you. I won't be able to be looking past that, and I don't find it okay to divide people, mostly when in a time like this when we need to be united. It's really hard to kind of vote for someone who's constantly dividing male and female, black and white, and then that just are examples. He divides all races and religions.
I think for me, it's really hard to look past it because if you're going to be saying racist things like this, that means you're thinking in a certain way. And if you're going to be trying to pass policies or whatnot, then that thinking is going to influence what you're going to say, what you're going to try to push. And then that's how we continue this systemic, that's how we continue the institutionalized racism. And if he's saying these sexist, misogynistic things too, then that's how we continue the institutionalization of sexism and misogynist ways of thinking and all these other isms. So for me, it's really hard to look past people that say these things or do these things, but then I also try to realize that systemic racism, systemic isms have been in place for a while. So it's more like change the system and then hopefully the system will change people in a sense, if that makes sense.
I think it's hard to also separate your race or ethnicity in this election, specifically because I think the way that Donald Trump, specifically him, and not necessarily the whole conservative Republican Party, but specifically him. So I watched one of his interviews with, it was regarding a judge that's of Mexican descent, and it was really hard for Donald Trump to see past his heritage, the heritage of the judge. He just automatically, because he came from Mexican ancestry, he associated him with that, and he couldn't see him simply as an American. And I think when you have a candidate that cannot see past that, how then can you see past that? Because if he only sees you as a Mexican, then how can you see yourself as only an American?
I think the thing that bothers me the most is that he's not taking responsibility for what he says. He kind of just like, I didn't say that, no. And someone who neglects to take responsibility is someone who shouldn't be running for president. Mostly when you're saying horrible things about or generalizing someone in a race. So.
How do you think the rest of the world is going to view the United States of America if Donald Trump is elected? Like, would this inspire more hate from the ISIS terrorist group, Mexican-American relations? How's that going out?
I think that would be viewed as a joke. And I say that because last fall I was in France and sitting around there. And, you know, that was back when Trump being the Republican candidate was kind of like an idea. It wasn't, you know, reality like it is now. And, you know, it's really hard to, you know, just disrespect that he has towards, you know, Muslims and Muslim countries and, you know, associating, you know, extremists with Muslims is, you know, he just doesn't find it in there. And he kind of puts it in one category. You know, it's really going to be hard for the international community to, I guess, support him and support his initiatives towards, you know, protecting the best interests of the United States.
I don't necessarily think that Donald Trump's perspectives on some issues, again, not all, just because some of them are very extreme, but I do know that I read an article about a Hindu extremist group in India that actually was in support of Donald Trump, and I think a lot of that comes from the very conservative perspectives like closed borders. You know, I think even if other countries were able to judge, it might potentially be the more liberal side of the country, not necessarily the other end, which would be the more conservative perspective. And I don't think it's too far to, too far off to say that his views on women and women's rights, a lot of other countries, I mean, we're not that high on the gender inequality scale. We're, I think, 20, which for a developed country, that's, I mean, we could do better. And there are a lot of other countries that fall below us, and I think that, gender-wise, politics are heavily dominated by men in other countries as well, and I think that that would indicate that they wouldn't necessarily be far off from his perspectives. But because he is so extreme, I think a lot of people would just, want to cut ties with us, but that's never going to happen because we function as a global society, so you can never do that. You still have to find a way to work with us.
When he's talking about NATO and how he wants those countries who are involved in NATO to take responsibility of their own defense or reimburse the U.S. from defending them that was provided in the past, I think that's gonna cut some ties because this is supposed to be like a neutral, common for all. Understanding that, like, okay, we're all putting effort into being in an alliance, and I think if you are gonna make these countries pay for reparations or something like that, it's kind of maybe cut some ties.
I was about to ask it in an even more direct way.
Okay.
Since, the New York Times generally says that Clinton's chance of winning is about 88%, what do you expect from the Clinton administration and in her executive role and the Congress that gets elected? What kind of things do you expect? It doesn't have to just be issues in the Latino arena, but any issue. So clearly the Latino arena, we'd like to know. I mean, this is likely to be the result of the election. So what are you expecting or hoping from that? In comparison, say, to what Obama's been able to achieve or not achieve?
Well, we have a national debt that is constantly growing, and I think both of these candidates haven't really addressed the issue of national debt. So I would want them to kind of go their policies surrounding this issue. So like this, we are able to have a more sustainable path, kind of a long-term kind of like policies instead of just thinking of the now. And I think that would be more important than some other issues and will be benefiting all of us, not just a select group like you said.
I think the environmental policy will also be huge just because, having the Clinton administration, if it were to be address, global climate change and its effects and really create a direct, course of action to address the issue and fix it, I think that would be really important and something that I'd like to see pretty quickly.
I know there's been a lot of talk for free college education to a certain extent, I think, community college or public. And it's happened in a few, maybe just a couple European countries. And I know that it doesn't sound like the best idea as far as spending goes, but I think that in the long run, it would be really beneficial for the United States, especially because a lot of people, not just minorities or low income, but even middle class and upper middle class people are finding it very hard to afford, attending university. And I think that it's a step in the right direction to push for us to have more affordable education, even if it weren't necessarily free, but to see a decrease in the interest rates on student loans, or have better opportunities provided to fund. So not necessarily be free completely, but some people think that free education on the collegiate level is absolutely out of, it couldn't happen. It would be very horrible. And I don't see that as a bad thing. And I would really like to see that actually be put in place to a certain extent. As well as healthcare. That's something that's really big, especially because in minority, low-income communities, there needs to be better access to healthcare, dental care, to ensure that they're living healthy lives. Latino women have really high rates of cervical cancer, and sometimes that could be prevented at earlier stages, but because they don't go to the doctor as often. Women's healthcare, I think, needs to take a step, a bigger step, as far as contraceptives being offered, maybe even more research into better contraceptives that don't cause so many problems. Those kind of things. I think Donald Trump seems to not necessarily care for those things. And I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that I think Hillary Clinton is completely for those, but as she's a woman, and she's kind of like, she's not the only candidate as an option because you can always write in or whatever, but and there's like talk of the divided vote. I don't necessarily, I wasn't necessarily for her in the beginning, but as the media frames it and what we've been kind of reduced to, I would say. But those are things that I'd like to see in place, and I feel like Clinton is a better shot. And that's putting it in very negative terms, but better shot. I think that's to go with that. Better shot.
I think for me, I'd actually like to see true immigration reform, because Obama had promised the Latino community that deportations would not continue, that he'd do something to decrease the amount of deportations, and he has actually deported the most people under his administration. And so for me, I think that's really important to continue DAPA and DACA, the deferred action for childhood arrivals and deferred action for parental arrivals, as this hits really close to home for me. I know people in my life, I have people in my life that are undocumented, and to even think about the fact that they could be separated from their families is just a tragedy, when I know that they are hardworking, when I know that they're not doing these criminal activities that some people like to paint undocumented immigrants as. In fact, I mean, there's been videos and articles that say undocumented immigrants, I mean, immigrants in general are less likely to commit crimes than citizens are, because they have this anxiety about, possibly being deported, or, going through these things as immigrants. And I mean, I think the thing is, and also another funny thing is that they don't pay taxes, but don't we get taxes taken out of our checks all the time? So how do you not pay taxes, right? I don't know, maybe somebody can explain that more to me, but I would really like to see a true immigration reform that really is looking to be inclusive and really give opportunity to the people. If this is the land of the free and home of the brave, then I want to see that.
To continue somewhat off of what Frida said, I also think that, we have the DREAM Act, and I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with that. And to a certain point, the DREAM Act isn't, it doesn't grant you any kind of citizenship. It allows you to continue your education, which I think is very valuable. And we see a good amount of children who are brought over at very young ages that pursue their education in the United States up until, they receive their 4-year degree. But from then on, they still are not technically documented, and therefore they cannot contribute to society in the ways that they could. I know in California there was a woman who she passed the bar exam. She was certified to be a lawyer, but she couldn't actually practice because she was not technically documented, which I think in those instances we could definitely do something to make that a possibility. I mean, if you are going to be nothing but contribution to society, which is a lot of times why they argue we don't want undocumented immigrants, because Donald Trump has claimed that they are drains to society, that they are criminals. But in this case, we can see she's actually an asset to society, but she still cannot be an American citizen. And I also think immigration policy needs to address issues of allowing perhaps better access to visas to some, like Mexicans to be able to come and work, especially in the agricultural field. Because if we can provide them visas, we can ensure that they're receiving the right wages, the right benefits, so the way they aren't greater health risks and they aren't. So if we did stuff like that, then I think we wouldn't have this great influx of Mexican immigrants overstaying visas or crossing the border, I guess illegally. But also not to increase spending on building this ridiculous wall that is not guaranteed to keep people out. There's other methods. So I think those would also be good steps in the right direction. Education, early education in low-income neighborhoods, I think is also something that needs to be addressed, and I hope will be addressed. Better funding for public schools, early access to education for minority students, low-income students also, not limited to only minorities, but.
Going off of that, I just had a thought pop in my head. I'd really like to see police reform as well in communities, especially communities of color. Surrounding everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter and police brutality. I would just really like to see something that involves more community policing or community peace officers. I mean, how can we turn around this institutionalized system that started off as catching slaves and turned into this police state, and how do we go from this to this and look at where we are now? So I would just really like to see a change in police reform as well.
Just out of curiosity, is there any aspects of Lincoln's policy agenda that you're kind of thinking about?
I read that she plans to enact pretty much set a clear immigration policy within the first 100 days of her presidency if she were to get elected. And I kind of want to see exactly what she plans to do with that and how she wants to go about it in such a quick fashion.
There's this quote I heard that the best way to disarm your enemy is to listen to them. And I think that we don't have enough dialogue. And I think that's also a little bit passive to just have dialogue. With dialogue, I think we need concrete action as well. And so I think that, some of the reasons that these things happen too is because our education system does not teach all sides of history. They often say that history is taught by the winner of, wars of whatever, and so we only learn this one perspective. And so I think education needs to be more inclusive and more global, not just like we were talking in Gary's Latin American politics class a couple weeks ago that like they never really termed the genocide of Native Americans as genocide until more recently, and some schools still aren't even teaching it as a genocide. And it's funny because it's a continued genocide. Like look at the Dakota Access Pipeline that's going on right now. There's kind of a media blackout about it and no one's paying attention, no one's listening to it. And so how are we going to be able to cure and overcome the ills of what's going on in the US if we don't even know what actually is going on in the US, because we're fed this kind of one-sided view about what's happened and happening in our world. So I think dialogue, and I think, I don't know, moving communities, like going to visit places. I mean, I think about a lot of my friends, and some of them have studied abroad, but a lot of Americans don't study abroad, I think. And it's so interesting because we have, like, I remember in my high school, we had students from all over the world come into my high school, and very few of, like, my high school students went out to study abroad. So I think we have this kind of, like, maybe homebody thing, and I think we need to explore the world more and really learn about new perspectives and stuff. Even if we disagree with them, it's okay to disagree, but really truly understand why you disagree. Is it because of your own biases and prejudices, or is there something, you know, really something that you can disagree with? Like, what is it about? Can you come to an understanding? Can you learn from one another? So yeah.
Going off of that, I want to say it is important to listen, and to add that, I don't know if any of you guys were here when Beverly Daniel Tatum came to our campus, and she stated that if someone would take a picture right now, and I think it'd be very important to think, what about if someone was missing from that picture, and how would they feel? And I think most of the time in this country is we forget about those people who are missing. And it's important to ask those questions. Who's missing? Why are they not in the picture? And what can we do to involve them and put them in the picture? So.
And I guess going off that, I think that the reason why, you know, as Frida said, that the winners usually write the history, is because there wasn't enough written history in order to like back it up and to show that it happened. Unfortunately, we only know about it from the people that experienced it, but there's not enough written history to say, you know, that'll like show it. Thankfully, there's now autobiographies of people that are writing about what they experienced and what they saw, and that's what we could base, you know, our future history lessons off of and what we're learning now. But I think that's a major flaw in the system.
Any more questions?
All right, so since we don't have any more questions, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Yeah, thank you for coming, and yeah, thank you for coming. Bruce, do you have any more announcements on events?
More announcements. Just to say that next semester, the Latino Latin American Studies program will be organizing a series of cultural events on campus. We're going to do in collaboration with the Hispanic Studies Department, the Spanish Alada, also Pueda, mid-semester